The Gemara in Baba Kama and Daf Nun Tes tells a very interesting story about a fellow named Eliezer Zeira who was wearing special shoes to commemorate the destruction of the Beit Hamikdash. He was wearing black shoes with black laces, which wasn't really the common garb unless this would have been the actual mourning period of the Tisha B'Av season. But it wasn't the Tisha B'Av season. So the officers of the home of the Reish Galusa accosted him and they said, "What are you doing? This isn't the mourning season." And he explained to Kama Bilna Yerushalayim, "Well, I'm mourning the destruction of Jerusalem and the Beit Hamikdash." And they looked at him surprised and they said, "At chashivas li sabuli Yerushalayim? Are you so important that you should be able to mourn so publicly the destruction of Yerushalayim when it's not the regular mourning period?" And he explained, "Well, Gavarabba Anna." He explained after they had taken him and placed him in jail, he said, "I'm a Gavarabba, I'm a person of significant stature." And then the story goes on to say that they tested him to see if he really was a Gavarabba, and he presented them with a question, and they weren't able to answer the question, and he was. So they freed him and released him. And the question is, what's going on over here? So Rabbi Chaim Friedlander, who is the Mashgiach of Panovich Yeshiva, discusses this story in the Sifsei Chaim, and he explains that one has to have a special sensitivity, one has to have a special connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu to really be able to manifest the mourning when it's not the mourning period of Tisha B'Av. When it is the 3 weeks and we build up to Tisha B'Av, we're able to feel that tremendous connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu that enables us to mourn properly. But if somebody's a Gavarabba, somebody's of significant stature, then it would not be a yuhara, it would not be a supercilious conduct to feel that sense of connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a sense of longing over what it is that we lost, even when it's not the Tisha B'Av season. And in some measure, what we try to achieve every single year, when we reach that emotional level of Tisha B'Av, is to have that connection, that appreciation for what we lost, that we should feel that closeness with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we should want to manifest that sense of mourning the entire year, and that we should be worthy of being of the level of an Eliezer Zeira, that we could feel that closeness, that passion to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore that very same of loss, because they go together. And I think that this is also exemplified by a different Gemara. There's a Gemara in Yuma that says that when the enemies came into the Beit Hamikdash, when it was being destroyed, they looked inside and they discovered that the Kruvim, the cherubs, were embracing each other. They were me'urin zeh bazeh. And this is odd, as the Ritva and others point out, because the Gemara in Baba Basra and Daf Tzadi Tes indicates we have a contradiction of verses. One verse says, Ufaneim ish elachiv, that the Kruvim faced each other, and the other verse says, Ufanehem labayis, that they faced away from each other towards the wall. And the question is, which is correct? And the Gemara answers, according to one man de Amar, that it depends whether the Bnei Yisrael were osim etzon Hashem makom. Was it a time that we were following Hashem's will, or a time that we were not following Hashem's will? When you follow Hashem's will, the Kruvim face each other. It would make sense that they might be in a state of embrace. When we're not following Hashem's will, so then they face away from each other towards the wall. So why, when the Beit Hamikdash was destroyed and we weren't doing Hashem's will, would the Kruvim have been embracing each other? And the Maggid of Mezerich gives a fascinating explanation. He says that when there is a closeness in a relationship, it's precisely at that moment of separation, when you know that you're going to be separated in a very significant fashion, that you feel that love, you feel the passion the most. It's like the halacha, chayav adam livkodes ishta b'shah sheyotze l'derech, that a man, a husband, is supposed to be intimate with his wife when he goes away for a long trip. It's a fascinating analogy, speaking to the passionate relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. That was a type of relationship that Eliezer Ze'ira was able to feel all of the time. And I think that part of how he was able to feel that all of the time was because he felt so much as an integral part of Klal Yisrael. He had an awareness of how this was his identity, part of Klal Yisrael, part of that embrace between the Kruvim, of his being absorbed in the embrace of the Kruvim. And you'll indulge me, I'll just explain on this basis how it is that he was able to show that he was a Gavur Rabbah. Because he said, there's a question, if you harm a person's dates on a tree, you cut down the dates, but the dates have not been ripened yet, they're not matured, how much do you have to pay? That was the question that he posed to the officers, and they said, well, whatever is the price, the value of unripe dates. So he said, but they're going to become ripe dates. So he said, okay, then have them pay the value of the ripe dates. So he said, but they're not ripe yet. So he said, okay, you tell us. So he said, well, you take 60 measures, you measured bashishim of a field that has all of those types of dates, and you evaluate what the commensurate damage is based on cutting away some of the dates in that orchard. And the question is, what kind of an answer was that? And I think the answer was Bashishim. He was referring to Bashishim Ribo, 600,000 of the members of Klal Yisrael, the microcosm of Klal Yisrael, like we had at Har Sinai. When you see 600,000 Jews, you make the bracha of Chacham Harazim. And he was saying that right now we're in a state where we're unripe dates, that we are not in our fully fulfilled state of being, and therefore we can not pretend that we are in that state. At the same time, we also have to recognize we have the potential of being in that state. And that was the awareness that he carried around with him all the time as a member of Bishishim, a member of Klal Yisrael. We have to attach ourselves to the rest of Klal Yisrael and recognize what we as a people have lost in terms of not being part of this embrace in the Kodesh HaKadoshim anymore with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And through having that sense of awareness, we should be zocheh, that we should turn this season of time that we do engage in the morning, from a time of yagon to a time of simcha, from a time of avelus to a time of yom tov, that we should merit to once again be able to be ensconced in that embrace with the Almighty in the Kodesh HaKadoshim in the Beis HaMikdash.